Ryan, we just wanted to bring you on because your Twitter game has been killing it, especially this past week. And we saw something come out not too long ago. It was actually sourced by you because you grabbed the LeBron quote. But LeBron said not too long ago, "I don't know how long I'm going to play the game. I don't know how much more I'll be able to give to the game. But the way I feel right now, we'll see what happens. I have no timetable on it. The game will let me know when it's time." When you heard that quote, I mean, like, obviously there's a difference between reading and then also hearing. People, when they read, can probably take it out of context. But when you heard when you heard that, what was your interpretation of LeBron saying that?
I think LeBron's kind of at a point in his career where he just kind of repeats himself a lot. He gets either asked the same questions over and over again, or he knows what's coming. You know what I mean? Like, come on, he knew, the Tom Brady questions were coming, and how much longer he got, and blah blah blah. So I wasn't surprised by it at all. I mean, I think I was more, when I was typing it out, I was like, okay, people are going to go crazy for this. But I wasn't shocked. I mean, I don't believe LeBron. I think he knows exactly how long he wants to play. I think he's really calculated that way. I think, everybody's said before that he wants to play with Bronny, right? Like, if Bronny makes it to the NBA. So whenever that happens, I mean, I think it does boil down to the fact that, how far is his body going to take him? Because somebody said something on Twitter recently, I can't remember who it was, but they're like, this season reminded them of Kobe before he tore his Achilles.
Oh.
Right? Just like playing insane minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd say it's a little different because I think they needed him to play insane minutes back then.
Yeah.
But with this team, you don't really need to because they're so damn deep. And, AD's taking off games every 5 or 6 games, it seems like. So why not him? But I think it's more of he's chasing Kareem, right?
Yeah.
He wants that. He wants the all-time scoring title, basically. He wants all of it. I think he realizes that he can sustain this, or at least until he gets hurt, right? Or knock on wood. He's just going to play as much as he possibly can. So he's punching Father Time in the face right now. But wait till he punches back, and see what happens then. But right now, I don't know. I would say 40. I would think he plays till 40. I'd say 4 more years, 5 more maybe.
I could probably see that. Do you think he's kind of hell-bent of like surpassing like Kareem's records?
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Anytime you hear him say he didn't realize this or that, I'm like, you're full of shit. I know you're like checking those stats before you play. Like, I need this to pass this guy and this guy. What did he pass? Wilt on the all-time field goals list last week.
Yeah, which I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, I was like, okay, that came out of nowhere. I didn't see him nobody talks about that, but it is kind of impressive. But the crazy thing is when he does pass these things, it's like he's played for 18 years, right? A lot of these guys didn't play that long, right?
That's true.
Except for Kareem and like Kobe and Malone, but still, he's not stopping playing like this until something that he can't control stops him,
Yeah. And speaking of LeBron real quick, because there was that press conference pic that you kind of screenshotted and you posted on Twitter of him sharing the press conference with Anthony Davis. Did that get any flack? Because like Mark and Guy come from the camp of like, hey, you guys, we should just leave it alone. And we know Twitter is a very like landmine spot. Did you get any complaints of people going like, oh, they should have worn a mask if they're that close to each other?
Oh no! You know what's funny? I never even thought of that. I think at that point I was just thinking, God damn it, I want to go to sleep. Like they took forever. I think that was after the double OTs, right?
Right.
On a Saturday. I was so pissed, and I was just like, I just want to relax, have a glass of whiskey, man, and just pass the hell out. But nope. Ron AD took forever, and then when they put the two seats together, I was like, man, this is weird. But I think they kind of run stuff more than most teams. You know what I mean? Like whatever AD and LeBron decide kind of goes.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that's with a lot of superstars, but these guys especially, because sometimes they're like Johnny on the spot. Like right after the game's done, 5 minutes later they're on the Zoom, and then there's times like that day where it's like half an hour, 45 minutes, and
where they're operating on the Kawhi Leonard clock. I get you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I was talking back and forth with Matt Moreno from Lakers Nation, and he's like, "Where the hell are these guys?" And I'm like, "I don't know, but I just want to get this over with and like start prepping for the Super Bowl. That's I'm done with this." And it's like against the worst team in the league, you know. Like I'd understand if it was the Bucks or the Nets or something, but freaking Pistons and then OKC last night. Like what?
I know. We're just talking about that. Yeah. Do you think does it ever leave? I mean, you're closer to the players. Anytime they lose to like a horrible team such as like the Detroit Pistons, does it affect them like super personally, or did they just kind of know? It's just this was our one off. Like, I mean, how are your observations with them?
I think they're more embarrassed than anything.
They do.
You can kind of really get that feel right after. I think with the Zooms more than in person, funny enough, because it's like when Frank Vogel sits down, I can tell within 5 seconds whether or not he's pissed off or he's just ripped into them, you know?
Really?
And both those games he was like that. Because he's the nicest guy in the world. That's probably the nicest coach I've ever dealt with in the NBA. At least he comes off that way. But he sits down and it just looks like he just looks miserable. Right, like somebody just kicked him in the nuts before he sat down. But I think they just get embarrassed because they're so good, right? That they shouldn't really lose to anybody. You know, I mean, I honestly think they're so good that there's nobody that should touch them. You know, they'll be competitive with them, but the Lakers just have that, just the stacked roster.
Yeah,
those two guys just playing in their prime. I mean, even though AD hasn't played phenomenal this year, partly because I think he's really banged up and doesn't want to admit that either. But they shouldn't lose to anybody. They really shouldn't.
Yep.
So teams like Utah, or a sleeper team like the Suns or the Clippers, like you don't see them as an actual like opposing threat, more of a threat than the Lakers.
I think honestly the biggest threat to the Lakers right now is themselves.
Yeah.
I think the only way that they're going to lose is if they self-destruct somehow, whether AD's injury issues become a real problem, which it feels like it's kind of getting to that point, but it's not serious because it's not like they've been blown out by 20 or 30. You know what I mean? Like, because that happened a couple of times last. You remember when they lost the Celtics by 30 last year?
On Martin Luther King Day. Yeah, that was the worst MLK day ever.
Second.
Yeah. Well, it's like there isn't that loss where you're like, okay. I mean, the biggest loss you're like is the Pistons, but you're like, that's kind of fluky. You know what I mean? That's just not going to happen. Even though it almost happened again. But I honestly think they're too damn good. They're just stacked in a way that it even kind of makes last year's team look lesser. You know, their shooters are all shooting well.
Yeah.
Like KCP, Crusoe, even Kuzma is hitting more threes than normal. LeBron's hitting threes, which I always get pissed off when I see him pull up from 50 feet, but it's not like anybody's going to tell him to stop taking it. So I don't understand you could do that and then airball free throw multiple times.
Yeah.
It makes no sense to me. But yeah, honestly, I think it's just they got to stay mentally strong. I think the only team that can break them is themselves.
We're on the phone right now with Lakers reporter and writer for LakersDaily.com, Ryan Ward. You can follow him on Twitter at RyanWardLA. And Ryan, you were actually talking about Kuz. I feel as if Kuz has been blossoming, but there's also a ceiling with him being on the Lakers. Like if he were on another team and like let's say they were to trade him to another team, then he can actually have a higher ceiling. Whereas like with the Lakers, it's kind of like, all right, you can grow, but as long as it's along the lines of LeBron and Anthony Davis. Like I don't want the Lakers to get rid of Kuzma, But do you really like have any type of like trade incentive to where like it would be okay getting rid of him?
Oh, it's at this point, I think the only way you would really get rid of him is if something happened within the team or he demanded it. Like he's just like, okay, I'm kind of done playing this like flex role. You know what I mean? Because you're totally on the money with that. Like if he goes somewhere else, that guy's averages 20 to 25 a game, right?
Yeah.
And he could really turn into something. Like he could be an all-star. I remember I got a big argument with Dan Dwangdow, like what was it, last year or the year before? And I said that I was a big Kuzma guy. I'm like, this guy's an all-star. He's going to be an all-star for sure. And then he was about Ingram, and I turned out to be wrong. But don't tell him that.
I will make sure he doesn't listen to this episode.
Time mark 34-minute, Dan, wink.
Yeah, but I think Kuzma's in that position where it's got to be tough, right? Like it's got to be like he's like, I know I can do a hell of a lot more than just grab rebounds and hit the occasional open three. He's a pure scorer. If anything, though, I think he is improving parts of his game that he wouldn't have before.
Yeah.
Right. So he's forced into becoming a good rebounder. I mean, him getting double-digit rebounds is not a surprise anymore. Now it's like, oh, wow, he had another double-double, or playing better defensively. He is improving his all-around game. In a way, he's making it easier for the Lakers to trade him when that time comes, right?
That's what I'm saying.
It seems to be like, oh wow, he can do all this stuff now. It's not just putting up 20 on any given night, 20, 25.
And the reason why I asked this, though, is because obviously there needs to be more playing time for Mark's favorite player, Talen Horton-Tucker. Yeah. So I think Kuzma, getting rid of him, will obviously create more room for THT to grow.
It's weird, man. Like, I honestly didn't think... I thought, Talen Horton-Tucker was obviously talented. I mean, the way he gets to the basket, it's just like you only see the best players do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He is so crafty. He's kind of like an old school player.
Yeah, it seems that way.
That's why I like him. I love his game because he doesn't just settle for the three. You know what I mean? He weaves in and out of paint and somehow gets to the bucket with his long arms. And he does it consistently. And he can play deep.